I looked down. It was like pouring low battery. I tried to grab the thing as fast as I could, and it did not go.
Fuck it.
Okay. Oh, the video's frozen. What the fuck? We should be good for volume. You guys probably start talking.
We should be good for volume. You guys should start
Yeah.
talking.
It's for the worst, so they tell us idiots.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I haven't seen it pop up here yet, but apparently third time's the charm because we've already lost twice. Are you back live?
I think so. It says live. So.
Wow, neat. We're doing our thing out here, trying to get this thing sorted out.
Oh, what is phenomenal? Reading the subtitles popping up on this. We are live. And it said that we are idiots.
We are idiots, so that's good to know. Overall, to sum it up, what we were talking about, whether you heard us or not, we think that the Chargers should be firing Brandon Staley. I think it's an absolute travesty that he still has a job when there's a lot of guys like you think of a guy like Brian Flores who lost his job and did significantly better than this guy has been doing. And overall, he sucks as a. There's no way he has the locker room. He sucks as like an X's and O's guy. But how?
I'm going to interject here.
Please?
Brian Flores, you said, probably is a great candidate. If I'm the Chargers, I have to bring an offensive minded coach. You have this phenomenal offense.
Yep.
And they're not living to the potential. You have a quarterback who realistically, right now, with no head coach who's quarterback friendly,
Right.
is probably a top 5 quarterback in this league. I'm going to use, and Kalen's not here to yell at me and tell me I'm an idiot.
Okay.
But look at the strides Trevor Lawrence made when they brought in Doug Peterson.
Oh yeah, big time.
Look at the strides Tua made when they brought in Mike McDaniels. You brought in guys who literally build offenses for a living, who can build that around their quarterback.
Right.
The Chargers need to do that. You've already done it. You've put all the tools there. You put all the pieces there. And unfortunately, you don't have a head coach who can relate to your quarterback. And for the defensive coach, your defense is losing fucking games.
That's the thing, is like they're losing these games and they're still scoring 30 points.
If you lose getting and you're supposed to be a defensive minded coach, maybe you're a great coordinator. And I'm not trying to shit on Brandon Staley. I'm trying to actually be nice to everybody here. But like, if you're scoring 30 points, you can't be losing football games.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, at 4-7 right now, it would take a miracle. They would basically have to run the table to be 10-7 to be in the wild card hunt. That's not happening. Like, it's just not going to happen. They're not built to win games from the seams. Like, when Kalen and I have conversations, when he tries to talk about the Kenny Pickett's of the world, I'll say, give me Kenny Pickett over Justin Herbert if this is the result.
But that's what I'm saying. Right? You guys aren't scoring points on the football games because you have a coach that can relate to your team.
Right.
Your players are going to go to bat for your coach. It's like, I don't know how Mike Tomlin does it. I really don't. There's been some bad football teams in Pittsburgh the last 10 years.
Well, he's
gone 500 or more every single year with 4 quarterbacks in 1 year. That does. Bruce Arians is the only guy that's ever done that.
Yeah, the one guy that like Mike Tomlin probably made him into the man that he is Duck Hodges, and Duck Hodges
he's pulling Laney Wilson because of Mike Tomlin.
That's what I'm saying is like. I think that there's a lot of NFL quarterbacks with big contracts that would trade positions with that dude right now.
Yeah.
Because, yeah. Anyway,
we're getting off topic here.
Not that kind of show, but yeah, I agree. It's less about the players you're putting on the field because everybody in the NFL is talented. But if you know how to utilize and use all those guys to the best advantage, then you're going to be in great shape. the Chargers really should be, and I don't know where they rank offensively. They should be a top 5 offense. They probably are with the amount of points that they've scored. They should not be giving up that many points, and going on the road in Lambeau Field is tough, but not this year. Like, the Packers' defense is okay. Their offense stinks. They have a bunch of young receivers. I don't think that there's any reason whatsoever that they go into Lambeau Field and lose that game. I think it's embarrassing. And if I were the owner of the Chargers, who I believe is Stan Kroenke, if I was Stan Kroenke, I would fire him. Done. You suck.
So crazy enough, the Chargers are the 11th ranked offense this year. They've only scored 28 touchdowns. But I think they're fourth in touchdowns.
I think they scored 9 of those touchdowns against the Lions. Right?
But like prime example, you played the Lions, you scored 30 points and you lost.
Yeah, 40 points and lost.
Yeah, like that's the stuff that cannot happen.
And that Lions team, like, I won't give anybody a hard time for losing that team. The Bears had hit them on the ropes, and I think it was a 12-point lead with 3 minutes left or 4 minutes left, and somehow Jared Goff, even as poorly as he played and as poorly as the game was going for him, mustered up enough strength and knew that his team was rallying behind him, and they moved themselves to 8-2. I don't think. Well, I know that there hasn't been a point in time in our fandom or our lives that the Lions being considered the number 2 seed and potentially
depend on tonight.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like if they continue on the path that they're on, the Eagles are clearly going to play a tougher schedule. It's not like the Lions are going to win 13 games probably.
And like I remember we had this conversation with Josh in the summertime, and we were laughing. It was the Lions be the Lions.
Yeah.
And we're like, yo, they're not winning 11 games. They're going to win 11 football games this year. And the other thought I thought of today was after watching that game yesterday, the way it ended, Jared Goff might be the right guy for that team.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Jared Goff's the top quarterback in this league. I think he's a very good quarterback. I wouldn't put him in the top tier by any means. But for what that team needs,
yeah,
I think he's the right guy. They have a great rushing game. Their offensive coordinator's got something figured out for what they do. The big obstacle is going to be what happens when that offense coordinator's probably gone next year. Because I'd be the kind of guy, if I'm in San Diego,
right.
If I'm making Jared Goff look good,
I think
what can I do with Justin Herbert?
I think that's the problem is the team is still in San Diego, but they play in LA.
That could be the issue.
It's definitely leading to some issues for them, and like at this point, and I think even if you look at record, and I don't have the divisions pulled up in front of me, they're in last place in their own division, and that's a division that has the Raiders and the Broncos, and the Broncos have won 4 straight. The Raiders have won 3 out of their last 4, I believe, if it's not 4 of their last 5. But when you're, and this isn't like a Chargers hater show, but when you're the Chargers,
they're in last place.
Yeah, and you're supposed to be pushing Kansas City, and you make these moves, and you have your quarterback to push Kansas City for the division. And the next closest team to the division, I believe, right now is the Broncos at 5-5. I mean, Kansas City, like this is why Patrick Mahomes has not played a road playoff game.
Literally why?
Yeah, like it's absolutely disgusting, and it's not like people like you could say, another division can have a better record. You can't because you play in the shittiest division in football. The Broncos have been a nice story. I actually do think that they're going to make a wild card push. They're not going to be a playoff team, but they're going to make the push and they're going to make things interesting. The Raiders, I think that they've stumbled into something with Pierce, and I think that might be one of the best moves the Raiders have ever made. The Chargers are just dead in the water. They should be relegated. If there was a relegation in the NFL, like that's what it would
be. The Raiders would win. Okay, they didn't go on the road. They're 1-5 on the road, which also means they're 4-1 at home. So what tells me is, what are the other teams doing when they come to Vegas?
It's the ultimate, yeah. And that's what the Vegas Golden Knights used to have too. But yeah, I mean, that AFC West is barely even worth talking about now. I mean, obviously we're gonna watch the Chiefs and the Eagles go here and
But I want to talk about one division, and it sucks that someone's not here. The AFC South.
Houston has really like cranked it up and turned it around.
Like
You know,
CJ Stroud has put himself like he threw 3 interceptions.
there's conversation about MVP.
Yeah, and he threw 3 picks, and they still won. And the part that I took away from all of it was he had his conference after the game, and the first thing he did say is, "I have to play better, but my team bailed me out, and it was a team win." He took ownership for what he did,
Yeah.
but he didn't come down. He goes, "I don't think I played terrible. I did not play good, but we have a good enough team to rally around that I got to rally around, and we won a game." To me, the teams that win the games, what they should win when they get put in the water, the teams to be worried about.
Right.
So, like, the Lions should have cakewalked the Bears yesterday. They didn't. They came back and found a way to win.
Right.
That shows something. A lot of good teams fold when that happens.
Yep.
Houston, yeah, they were playing a bad team in Arizona.
But at least it's the Kyler Murray, Arizona.
Yeah.
So I mean, there was a little fight.
But like you didn't play great, but you did enough to win. And to me, that shows me that's a good football team.
Right.
The teams that can face adversity, even when they're really good and still come out on top, those are the teams you got to worry about down the stretch.
Yeah.
And CJ Stroud's a winner. Like we said before the draft, we said he should be the number 1 guy.
Yeah.
And he's shown it.
And we were clear. Yeah, we were clear about like who we wanted them to pick. And Carolina's going to do Carolina things. Houston did the right thing by not only taking Stroud but trading back up to get Anderson because clearly Anderson was the number 2 prospect based on everyone's board. But when you see what you see in that quarterback, and D'Amico Ryans has hit a lot of quarterbacks to know what he wants to see and what he doesn't want to see. So I think a lot of the credit goes to D'Amico Ryans for changing the culture. A lot of credit needs to go to the GM, which is, I mean, he's probably going to be the executive of the year. It'd be shocking if D'Amico Ryans isn't the coach of the year.
Except for Dan Campbell.
I was going to say, right? The only reason he might not be is because Dan Campbell's going to take it. And crazy to see that those 2 teams are kind of stepping up. And, you know, even though we've seen some playoff Houston teams since they've come in, this is probably the best Houston Texans team, right?
I think so.
I mean, the Deshaun Watson teams or whatever, we've seen them play some pretty like lackluster quarterbacks when they actually finally make it to the dance. Like I think Brock Osweiler started a game at quarterback for the Texans, but CJ Stroud is a different level, and he is what you want to draft. And I'm not gonna, I talked about, I think in rendition 1 of this is rendition 3 of the show today. I talked about DJ Ugalungalale being a guy to watch and probably the top quarterback in the draft. Not that I would take him with a top 10 pick, but you can get the top quarterback in the draft with a later pick. He's probably the closest to that, just without the winning pedigree that Stroud is bringing. I think.
And I think you're right. Like, what do you got to remember? Like, DJ came from Clemson. And one thing Debo's always had is great quarterbacks.
Yep.
Like, I think he sent 4.
He's just not a spread quarterback.
Yeah, he sent 4 straight to the NFL.
Yeah. And
I know like Oregon State's gonna take like DJ's around, and I get how that goes. If Debo took a chance on you and you played as a true freshman, you're a good quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why they're probably set up at quarterback for the next little while. And Clemson with 4 losses this year, I doubt that they lose 4 games the next 2 years.
Yeah, and I think Dabo touched on. He kind of just came out and said like, when they've had 12 straight 10-win seasons.
Yeah.
That's like you're spoiled.
They have the most wins in the playoff era.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Like clearly,
Georgia's lost a game in 3 years.
Georgia hasn't lost an SEC game, and this will be their 3rd straight year of running the table if they can beat Alabama in
championship.
Yeah, I think they have Georgia Tech this week, so it doesn't that's not a conference game. I would imagine it's going to be a bad day to be a Georgia Tech football player.
Oh, that's gonna be bad.
But yeah, the championship games in college are starting to get set, even though they're a couple of weeks away. But the pseudo Big Ten championship is going to get played this Saturday, and that is Ohio State and Michigan. And this is the pseudo Big Ten championship because well, until next year, the Big Ten just hasn't been able to pull their head out of their ass to figure out how to set up a proper championship game. So whichever one of these behemoths win is going to go play Iowa.
And Iowa can't score more than 10 points a game.
Yeah, I think their last game was their over under was 29.5.
Let's go.
It's, I mean,
Like they wave in the third quarter, like
yeah.
that's what's gonna be happening every time Ohio State or Michigan runs past their defense.
And for me, I think you know, we clearly are not Michigan supporters by any stretch of the imagination. There's only one player on their team that I think looks good enough to be like an impact player in the NFL, and that's running back Edwards. Um, the JJ McCarthy's are supposed to get drafted in the first round, and like I think that's hilarious because the guy sucks.
He's not that good.
But
I've talked to numerous Michigan fans,
yeah,
and even they're at the same point. Like, I don't understand it.
I wouldn't draft a guy with that stupid haircut. Even if he was the best quarterback ever, his haircut is too stupid, and as a coach, I wouldn't be able to stomach seeing that asshole in the locker. But I do think even though it's in Michigan, the not having Harbaugh effect is a big deal. You just struggled with Maryland, granted in Maryland, who Tua's brother is their quarterback. I don't think that they can handle some of the smoke that Ryan Day is going to throw at them. Plus, this is a revenge game from last year. I don't think Ohio State's beat Michigan in the last 2 years, if that's correct. There's no way it's going 3 in a row. Plus, you can catch 5 points or 5.5 points with Ohio State right now.
Oof.
Yeah, take the money line. Just enjoy it. Take the money line. I'm sure Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to make me look like an asshole and go for 3 touchdowns and win the Heisman, but against Michigan, that'll be the only game.
Talking about Marvin Harrison, I saw a graphic pop up the other day, and it was comparing him to Devontae Smith's Heisman season.
Yeah.
And I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be a great receiver. I do. But if you put those two guys side by side in college, it's not close.
In our favor or the other way?
And Devontae's favor. He had like 20 touchdowns.
Yeah. And he's only 170 pounds, so that's the most touchdowns per pound in CFB history. Other things that kind of stood out to me this weekend, and I watched a decent amount of football while putting up the lights and doing whatever. Another great win for Michigan State. But from an NFL perspective, and I kind of touched upon this on the Rogers show, the hypocrisy in which teams are covered was enough for me to listen to the games in mute. So last night, Chris Collinsworth was playing Neil and Bob with the Broncos about how they, you know what that means. About how it's so amazing that their defense keeps them in the game, and you get them to the fourth quarter, and Russell Wilson will make it happen. And this is such a dynamic team, and they're so built for the right things. And then you listen to them talk about the Cleveland Browns, and the Cleveland Browns have such an amazing defense, and they just get their quarterback to the final drive, and if he wins, it's amazing. It's such a team effort. And then the Steelers do it, and they're like, oh, the offensive coordinator sucks. Kenny Pickett's not a good quarterback, and they need to take pressure off the defense. Like, fuck off. It's the exact same fucking scheme. Every single team, outside of the teams that have the actual elite quarterbacks, are playing the same scheme. The fucking Baltimore Ravens are doing it. The Broncos are doing it. The Browns are doing it. Look up and down. The Packers are attempting to do it. You let these teams hang around, and you let these teams stay in the game, and this is what's going to happen. I was not upset with the loss against the Browns because it's a field goal. You win some, you lose some. That would have been the 10th consecutive win when trailing in the fourth quarter by 1 score, and the Steelers came back and win. They had to lose at some point, but overall, I'm just so tired of the hypocrisy behind it. Who cares about how your quarterback is playing? Is Kenny Pickett Trevor Lawrence? No. Is he Peyton Manning? No. But does he have 6 wins this year? Yes. Would Justin Herbert, what would Justin Herbert trade to play on the Pittsburgh Steelers right now? Like, give me a fucking break, man. I'm so sick of listening to it.
So just touch back. I want to look it up so I can pull this up because we've been told that we're haters.
Yeah.
And I I didn't say he's not going to be a receiver. I'm saying he's
No.
not going to the Heisman.
And he shouldn't be the
I
second
want
overall
him,
pick. He
and I
should
want
be
to
like
make this very clear.
the 15th overall pick.
He has 62 catches in 11 games for 1,000 yards, 13 touchdowns. A very respectable season.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to show you Devontae Smith's senior season.
Okay. I bet you it's better.
A little bit.
Okay.
117 catches, 1,800 yards, and 23 touchdowns.
Yeah. So that's.
Do not tell me they're on the same. You cannot tell me one wins a Heisman and the other one does. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that Marvin Harrison, he actually might be a better NFL receiver. I'm not going to say he is or he's not. I'm not going to put that out there. But we're talking about the Heisman Trophy and where he belongs. He doesn't belong there.
No.
If that's the standard, which Devontae Smith put out, you're only doing a fraction of that right now.
And granted, there'll be like I would assume that these all like if Ohio State were to win against Michigan, then they play in the Big Ten championship game. That game counts.
He's not going to get 60 catches all in 3 games.
No, I agree. I agree. Like he's not going to average 15 catches a game and like 4 touchdowns to catch him. I'm saying like those stats will be like this, but it's still crazy that he won the Heisman altogether.
Yeah.
Like even with guys like Michael Penix, who, again, another guy that kind of like opened my eyes. I would never draft a left-handed quarterback. That's more of a Madden thing than anything. But like, majority of the coaching that I've done is on Madden, so that's how I'll use it. But
it's a great benchmark, by the way.
Right, I
Do
think
you play the Engage 8 defense?
Yeah, and
Does live on the edge?
You Blitz Zero. I think that he is also going to be an above average NFL quarterback. He will start for somebody, whether he stays home and gets with Seattle, but he's probably going to be another amazing value pick at quarterback, which might not be the bad way to go right now. It looks like this draft is loaded with defensive backs and pass rushers. If you're a team that's in need of a quarterback, well, you also need defensive backs and pass rushers more than likely. So you should grab those guys in the first 2 rounds and wait for guys like DJ and yeah. That's
you
right.
and I are always very big on the
Coach Kaz, I'm rocking the hoodie for you.
5th year option. We've never shied away from it.
Yeah.
We've always talked about it, how important it is. If I'm a team that needs a quarterback, and there's going to be a couple of them, there's a lot of really bad free agents coming out this year.
Oh, yeah.
And it'll be a lot cheaper to draft somebody.
100%.
If you're in that boat, how enticing does that bottom of the first round look? Because we've been very hard on Caleb Williams, but we both know he's a top 5 pick. It's going to happen.
Someone's going to take him, yeah.
Drake May is going to be a top 5 pick.
Should be.
Definitely a top 10.
Yep.
Okay, but now where do we go after that? And I think that's where it gets really intriguing to all these guys. Do you jump back in to get a guy late? Because if I'm a team that needs a quarterback, but I'm not picking in the top 5, I'm trading my way back.
Yeah.
I think the value in the quarterbacks this year is at the back of the draft opposed to the front.
Right.
And like the teams are picking the front. If I'm Arizona, you got to make a choice really quick what you want to do.
You would also assume that you're getting a first round pick at minimum for Kyler Murray, right?
Yeah.
Like you have him locked up, he's under contract.
His upside is still here.
You're not going to get the Russell Wilson trade. You're not going to get the Deshaun Watson trade. But if you can find like whatever the third tier under that is, and that's not because he's not better than those guys. It's because teams aren't going to make that mistake.
I think that you're seeing now what has happened when those other teams have made those moves.
Right. Like if you're the Patriots right now, and I know you have like another point, and you're picking 5th or 4th, and Drake May is there, but Arizona is also offering you Kyler Murray. Like, would you take Kyler Murray over Drake May?
I would. Why? Like at that point, I would give up my 5. I know what I'm getting out of Kyler.
Yeah.
And as much as we joke about him being small and blah blah blah, and he plays reckless, plays Call of Duty. You know what you're getting out of him, and once again, his upside's really high. He's been in a pretty bad situation in Arizona.
Yeah.
He played for a coach who should have been an NFL coach. And he still played at a Pro Bowl level for when he was on the field.
Yeah. Yeah.
the most part, but he wanted an offense and he was going to get killed.
We forget about that stuff, right? Like DeAndre Hopkins was there.
Yeah.
Hollywood Brown is still there, but I mean he had Hollywood Brown. A guy like James Conner in like the back half of his prime, who he's still in the league, so we're not gonna bury him. But like James Conner's best days were probably 2 years ago. Tight ends like Zach Ertz and McBride, and they've had some guys there that make him better. But yeah, I mean they can't get over the hump, and they haven't been able to get into that playoff status.
So like, if I'm the Cardinals, I'd shop him. I think, or you got to keep him, right? But you're not going to get 3 first-round picks. So we have to understand.
Right.
And if I only got to give up 1 first-round pick for him, I probably would. And if I'm a team that's there,
Right.
why wouldn't I?
And if you're Arizona, I guess like it would be hard to let him go for nothing. I mean, and I'm not saying 1 first round pick is nothing, but you would think that you're getting a first round pick and a guaranteed top 5 first round pick if the trade happens after the season. Obviously carries more weight than the Russell Wilson trade. But yeah, you would be looking at a first, a second, and probably a player back. So I don't know if the Patriots are deep enough, and like I'm just picking them specifically because I think that they're done with Mac Jones, and they're going to be one of those teams that's pretty heavy into the quarterback market, especially with Belichick maybe being out of there. But this year, if you're, I'll loop myself in this. So if you're the Falcons, the Steelers, the Packers, um, the Titans, because you still don't know what Will Levis is. If you know,
The Raiders, man. The Raiders, like
Raiders
if I'm
for
the
sure.
Raiders, I'm going after a quarterback.
Probably the Broncos because you want to protect yourself.
But like if Kyler Murray's on the table and I'm the Raiders, I make that offer.
The Jets, like you want if you're any of those teams, like those are the teams that I think will be like circling the waters for a guy like Penix or a guy like Uiagalelei, maybe even like a Sam Hartman, depending on how far you fall. But even though you have your starter in and you still aren't sold on that guy, so your best course of action is to draft another one in, and in the best case scenario, they both work out. In the worst case scenario, one of them works out. And that's the situation. Until you're set and sold on your quarterback, continue to draft them. And even as a fan, like we'd probably lose our minds if 2 straight years in a row you get a first round pick. But who gives a shit? You're gonna trade him away anyway, you're gonna get some capital.
I'm not like, do I think Baker's the answer in Tampa? No. I like Baker this year. I don't think he's done anything wrong.
Yeah.
But if you give me the opportunity, if I could take Kyler Murray, I'd probably take him over Baker.
Yeah. And
like I like Baker. I just think that Kyler Murray's upside is so much higher. He's a better athlete. He's better arm talent, and I think he's in a bad system.
Like every team in your division should be thinking quarterback, with the exception of Carolina. Yeah, and that's only because they have the first overall pick, and it's too early to give up.
Yeah, so like I think to me that's a fair look, and I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
I think it's just one of those things now where who's gonna pull the trigger?
Yeah, and overall, like quarterback free agency is going to be pretty low this year based on like looking at it. I mean, unless Jimmy Garoppolo gets another look from somebody, which obviously someone's going to sign him, but like he's not walking in to be a starting quarterback anywhere, right? And outside of that, like Kirk Cousins is your top name, and I'm sure every team would take Kirk Cousins right now in a heartbeat, but he's in his mid-30s and he's coming off of an Achilles injury. Um, if I had to put all my chips in the middle, say there's no way Minnesota lets him out of the building. Like
there's nothing there to bring in.
Yeah, even if he's not willing to resign, which it sounds like he would be willing to resign, he's gonna get franchised again and again and again, and he's gonna have to play there. And I think, I think that the quarterback market is gonna be pretty interesting over the next couple of years because the free agency market is poor, and I think there's gonna be lots of value coming out in the draft.
We gotta go watch this football game.
Yeah, outside of that, we should probably go watch this rematch, but. Definitely go watch this rematch. Check out all of our sponsors. Make sure you hit them up because without these guys, we wouldn't even be around.
We'd have more technical issues if it wasn't for them.
Yeah, we appreciate you checking us out. And we're gonna go enjoy this game. Hopefully, you do the same. We'll see you next.